Veterans Day, presented by Ireland Elementary School. Godfather of Elias Weber. Father of Elias, Eleanor, and Roslyn Weber. Great-grandfather of Elias, Eleanor, and Roslyn Weber. Great-grandfather of Elias, Eleanor, and Roslyn Weber. Grandmother of Jasmine Watkins. Mother of Hurley Joe Luker. Stepfather of Mia Brown. Father of Hunter Chambers. Uncle of Jonna Bombelli. Bonus mother of Hurley Joe Luker. Father of Hurley Joe Luker. Father of Dawson, Roslyn, and Rhiann Dittmer. Father of Leo and Evelyn Brescher. Father of Alan, Jane Margaret, and Meredith Ondiak. Grandfather of Mason and Dalton Meyer and Avery Berger. Grandfather of Hurley Joe Luker. Uncle of Hurley Joe Luker. Grandfather of Zane, Raylan, and May Bobble and Hudson and Colton Wiggin. Grandfather of Lane and Leighton Ware. Grandfather of David, Anna, and Ava Knies. Grandfather of Anna and Lila Huffman. Uncle of Alex Jerger and brother of Mrs. Jerger. Grandfather of Colleen Pfister and father of Mrs. Pfister. Grandfather of Jeb, Will, and Ava Sindelweck and father of Miss Mindy Sindelweck. Grandfather of Henry Herm. Grandfather of Henry Herm and uncle of Mrs. Bauer. Great-grandfather of Hudson and Maggie Maringer. Bonus dad of Emma and Ella Winkler and father of Olive Dunphy. Uncle of Jackson Knies. Cousin of Leo and Evelyn Brescher. Father of Charlotte Galehausen and son of Mr. Mark Galehausen. Grandfather of Jasper Bauer. Grandfather of Owen Schmidt. Uncle of Owen Schmidt. Uncle of Owen Schmidt. Great-grandfather of Elin Rue and Will, Rowan, and Camden Werner. Great-grandfather of Elin Rue, Will, Rowan, and Camden Werner. Great-grandfather of Elin Rue and grandfather of Mrs. O'Connor. Uncle of Cortland Kleesner. Grandmother of Spencer and Sophia Odo. Grandfather of Hannah Schneider. Grandfather of Bree, Lexi, and Cohen Vollmer, and father-in-law of Mrs. Vollmer. Father of Jennifer Breitwieser. Grandfather of Luke Bauer and Hayden and Peyton Mullins. Uncles of Luke Bauer and Hayden and Peyton Mullins. Cousin of Luke Bauer and Hayden and Peyton Mullins. Great-grandfather of Luke Bauer and Hayden and Peyton Mullins. Cousin of Luke Bauer and Hayden and Peyton Mullins. Cousins of Luke Bauer and Hayden and Peyton Mullins. Mother of Aidan Voigt. Grandfather of Jaden and Kai Dink and Lavella Helming. Cousin of Jaden and Kai Dink and Lavella Helming. Grandfather of Griffin Seal. Grandfather of Griffin Seal. Grandfather of Grant, Evan, and Cole Modice. Grandfather of Leo, Becca, and Eva Dupes. Uncle of Owen Vogler. Stepfather of Camilla Shake. Father of Piper Brescher. uncle and godfather of Piper Brescher. Grandfather of Graham Werner. Grandfather of Colton Lindauer. Grandfather of Tegan Day. Cousin of Garrett and Eva Beck. Grandfather of Garrett and Eva Beck. Uncle of Garrett and Eva Beck. Uncle of Garrett and Eva Beck. Father of Ella Reinhardt. Grandfather of Trayson, Carly, and Aidan Haas, Evie Summersheim, Anna and Jet Summersheim, and Kinley Summersheim. Great-grandfather of Will and Amelia Butel. Cousin of Will and Amelia Butel. Great-grandfather of Garrett and Eva Beck. Father of Colton Lindauer and uncle of Maddie Pope. Grandfather of Charlotte Huffman. Great-grandfather of Julia Fow. Father of Jace Anderson. Grandfather of Brooklyn and Cale Wagner. Cousin of Gabriel and Lincoln Steimel. Friend of Kaylee Hof. Great-grandfather of Jackson and Graham Lubenow. Grandfather of Bryant and Emery Meringer. Uncle of Lane and Tate Leinenbach. Cousin of Lane and Tate Leinenbach. Uncle of Mrs. Lisa Kenser. Grandfather of Dagan Bradley. Uncle of Grant, Evan, and Cole Modice. Grandfather of Aidan Klutinger. Grandfather of Gabby Daniels. Aunt of Gabby Daniels. Uncle of Sophia Kurzendorfer and brothers-in-law of Mrs. Kurzendorfer. Father of Sophia Kurzendorfer and husband of Mrs. Kurzendorfer. Father of Eli Kiefer. Grandfather of Gabriel and Lincoln Steimel. Uncle of Callie and Jace Jackal. Grandpa, Pop, of Crosby McCain. Grandfather of Jasmine Watkins. Uncle of Jasmine Watkins. Father of Griffin Hembry. Uncle of Emerson and Leo Schmidt. Grandfather of Lucy and Lillian Bolton. Great-grandfather of Lucy and Lillian Bolton. Great-grandfather of Lucy and Lillian Bolton. Father of Riley, Landon, and Luke Sullivan. Grandfather of Khaled and Cambry Perry. Great-grandfather of Emerson and Leo Schmidt. Great-grandfather of Emerson and Leo Schmidt. Great-grandfather of Emerson and Leo Schmidt. Great-grandfather of Sarah and Mackenzie Ware. Brother of Arizona and Clarissa Mailing. Great-uncle of Sarah and Mackenzie Ware and Aubrey Newhoff. Great-uncle of Sarah and Mackenzie Ware and Aubrey Newhoff. Grandfather of Wes Underwood. Grandfather of Sophia Kurzendorfer and father-in-law of Mrs. Kurzendorfer. Great-grandfather of Nolan and Reed Heichelbeck. Grandfather of Riley, Landon, and Luke Sullivan. Great-uncle of Riley, Landon, and Luke Sullivan. Uncle of Grayson Brinkman. Uncle of Grayson Brinkman. great-uncle of Hudson Pfister. 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 Grandfather of Will, Rowan, and Camden Werner. Grandfather of Lucy Linetti. Grandfather of Quade Werner. Great-grandfather of Quade Werner. Great-grandfather of Quade Werner. Grandfather of Abel Stackhouse. Grandfather of Alex Jerger and father of Mrs. Jerger. Great-uncle of Caleb Broom. Uncle of Elin Prechtel. Uncle of Gracelyn Friesen. Great-grandfather of Zane, Raylan, and May Bobble and father of Mrs. Ruckriegel. Great-uncle of Rylan Brosmer and Lila Dahmer. Uncle of Riley Harris. Uncle of Kobe Nelson. Cousin of Kobe Nelson. Uncle of Everly Dahmer. Father of Roslyn Zink and Aidan Zapata. Great-grandfather of Zax Rue. Great-great-grandfather of Zax Rue. Father of Haley and Levi Gentry. Father of Grayson Burge. Aunt of Colton and Ava Bell Worm. Uncle of Colton and Ava Bell Worm. Grandfather of Ruth Winholt. Grandmother of Ava Sander and Brinley Maney. Father of Ava Sander and Brinley Maney. Grandfather of Avie Sander and Brinley Maney. Great-grandfather of Luke and Addie Leinenbach and Eli Poff. Great-grandfather of Charlotte and Harrison Williams. Uncle of Thomas and Reed Stout. Grandfather of Henry Rote. Uncle of Elias, Eleanor, and Rosalind Weber. Grandfather of Elias, Eleanor, and Rosalind Weber. Uncle of Denver Hallett. Uncle of Denver Hallett. Uncle of Denver Hallett. Uncle of Denver Hallett. Cousin of Denver Hallett. Uncle of Cohen Begley. Great-grandfather of Denver Hallett. Uncle of Evelyn and Emerson Crawford. Uncle of Evelyn and Emerson Crawford. Grandmother of Lillian and Lucy Bolton. Grandfather of Lillian and Lucy Bolton. Cousin of Garrett and Eva Beck. Great-grandfather of Briley and Adeline Cash and Zoe Mitchell. Great-uncle of Ava Arnold. Brother of Ms. Scherzinger. Father of Annabelle and Gracie Schmidt. Great-uncle of Eli Gibson and Nolan Schwank and Isla Libehusen. Great-grandfather of Eli Gibson and Nolan Schwank and Isla Libehusen. Thank you, veterans. You are our heroes.